All right, guys. So thank you for joining. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the latest challenge, and we're going to talk about the data set a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the visuals that you can use within it. And like Federico already mentioned, if you do have any questions, just drop them in so we can look at them, we can answer them. That's what the time is all about here. What else? Before we start off to talk about the data set, right, and the challenge and everything, one thing I wanted to quickly go through once more just to kind of remind everybody. Give me a second. I'm going to quickly open it up, and that is going to be the challenge brief itself. There we go. We're going to share entire screen. There we go. So if we go under the challenges, we want to learn more. So the most important thing that I just wanted to remind everyone, right? Remember, when you sign up for a challenge, make sure that you go through these tabs, right? Not necessarily the first thing you want to do, but the first thing that you want to answer or to understand when you are starting to work with a report is make sure you read about the challenge itself so you understand what the environment is really about, how to participate so you understand what is needed prior to this, and the brief. The brief is always includes some additional information that is regarding the data set. In this case, this is specifically important for the main reason, basically this is for all of the challenges, but this is the most important part for you guys. This is the part where you can find all the questions that we want you to answer within the report, right? This is what helps you to understand as well, from the data perspective, what do I need to focus on? Is it just the annual salary? Is it the age gap, for example, if it is one? What am I supposed to look at? This gives you the direction that you want to investigate in. If you find something additionally, and if you think that it is worth mentioning or showcasing, go ahead. You're more than welcome to do that, right? We're always looking to see different visualizations, different types of reports, and how you, let's say, tackle one specific aspect of it. But this is what gives you the primary objective of the challenge. You want to say something, Federico?
Yes, guys, the brief is what your client, your boss, your manager is telling you to do.
Yeah.
So the idea of downloading the data and start working on it without reading the brief is incorrect. You read the brief, highlight a couple of things important, objective, audience, whatever you can gather from the brief, and then you start working on the data set. It's very important. We see a lot of people that they don't go through the brief and then produce something that, yes, it's okay, but it has nothing to do with the brief. So thank you, but I don't need that. Can you go back and read the brief? So very important, guys. Always start by reading the brief. That's it.
Exactly. It just puts you in the right direction. And also, when you're looking at the data, you're going to notice in the early days, you probably don't start with this, but the more you start to work with reports and the more you start to build with them, I think Federico is going to agree with me. Once you read the brief and once you look at the data, you look at it completely differently.
Yeah.
When you start off, you're just looking at data. Okay, so I have that sort of information. I have some numbers. I could do this and that. But once you have the objective of the report, what am I supposed to showcase here? You're looking at the data and thinking, okay, I could use this to calculate that. I can use that afterwards to get something else. So that gives you an overall understanding of how to do things afterwards. So don't forget about the brief. Look at it, learn it, and mark it on a wall if you need to, or make a post-it note, whatever helps you.
Everyone have different ways, so but do it, guys. Believe me, when you are at work, you will really feel okay. That little tip is very important. And as Avi said, you will look at the data in a different way because you now know what your client, your manager, your boss wants.
And one thing that I can definitely say from my experience is without the brief, it's very easy to go off course. Because when you start the report, for example, when you discuss it with the team, you set some objectives and you start to investigate it. But whilst digging through the data, you know, oh, this might be something that we need, this might be something that we need, and suddenly you're ended up with a report that has like 10 different visuals, 10 different dimensions at the same time, and it's just a little bit too overwhelming. So having a brief allows you to set the points that you need to answer, and then you try to figure out, okay, I have limited amount of space. How do I do this in the best approach possible? Do I separate it into multiple pages? Do I separate it with visual switches? Whatever you do, it gives you the playing ground for it. And the brief is always good because once you kind of get stuck or if you want to check if you're on track, just check if you're answering the questions, because that is the primary object. If you find something afterwards, you can always discuss it or pitch it to the team. Hey guys, I also found this additional information. Maybe this might be useful, but that's not the primary thing. So focus on the brief. Afterwards, the data set. So when you download the data set, you're going to get two things. You're going to get the Excel file, which is the actual data set itself, and you're also going to get the cheat sheet. So remember, the cheat sheet is just a quick file that allows you to check what type of visuals could be used for what type of information, and also what type of visuals could be replaced between native visuals or built-in visuals from Power BI and ZoomCharts visuals. So it just gives you a better understanding of, okay, if I have something similar with the native visuals, how do I replicate it with, for example, ZoomCharts visuals? Just gives you a better playing ground to understand, okay, what options do I have here? Other than that, let's see where it was. Where was the slides? There we go. Go to the next one. Send this again. But yeah, I think we probably can start, Federico, right? Regarding the data set.
Yes, actually, Luis is asking about that, the first thing that I'm going to share. Can I share?
Yeah, should be able to.
Yeah, I'm supposed to, but because I'm terrible. Yeah. Window. I never find what I'm looking for.
I think it's usually at the top on the Webinar Jam platform.
Yeah, but again, everything showed, but what I need to... No, it doesn't show my screen one. The screen I'm talking, I got my Excel open, but it's not showing here. It's okay. If I do this, I'm gonna share the screen. Why is it not showing? Liang, I don't like this webinar system. It doesn't show. Give me a second. Let me try this one.
No worries.
I know it's not that one, but if I move that in here now, something will happen? No. One second.
We can see the browser.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. I got it now. But I got it now because I put it in a different screen. Okay?
Yep, we can see.
The data set now? Okay, Luis, we know that in this column, there are duplicate. I did it the other day. Give me a second. Okay, so there are two options. One, we need to create a new column. Yeah, one we can concatenate, put it together. We have the ID and the name. My simple solution is this one, guys. Employee new ID. One, and I'm going to bring it down all the way to the end. Field series. And now we have a column with numbers from 1 to the last row, and they are now they are not repeated. So this one that is supposed to be a repetition, duplication, is not repeated anymore because we have E0013 Elena Van, and then we have E0013 Raelin Ma. Now they have different IDs. And this one, don't use it. You hide it in Power Query. That's a very simple solution. You can do the same in Power Query. You can go to Power Query directly and create a new column, starting from 1. Okay, it will give you a number, a unique number per row. Therefore, you avoid duplications. Okay, that is the only big issue with the data set. And remember, this data is entered by humans, by some person in an office. Okay, and mistake happens. Okay, so it's nothing real. You can actually encounter this very often or often. Opening the file in Excel before you take it to Power Query is also a very good idea to do this kind of check. Okay, duplication, I don't know, get salaries and do the maximum, the minimum, and the median. And you see very big disparities between the max, the mean, and the median. It's because there is something wrong, there is some outliers, there is something that is not checking out properly. So do a couple of checks to see the integrity of your data before you take it to, or the quality of your data, more than integrity, the quality of your data before you take it to Power Query, or do this check in Power Query. Okay, so Luis, that is what I did to actually fix the problem in my data set. I just created another column, one unique number to 1000, I think it is. And I give you another name to the column, and that's the column I'm going to use to make my calculation, my counts. Okay, another thing that I normally do, okay, so we have a flat table, okay, but I can see that we have a number of columns that can be used within a dimension, or we can create a dimension from it. I give them the same color, so we got job title, department, and business units, and I give them the same color. We got country, city, latitude, and longitude. Okay, I give them the same color. That will be another dimension. And the one in gray are the fact table. Okay, I'm not sure yet how I will take. Do I go through create another dimension from female and male? I don't know if that will be necessary in this case. Most probably I will take another dimension from the ethnicity. That there are various. Therefore, I don't really know if I actually will create two more dimensions just for that, because they are too small. You will create one from gender, one from ethnicity. I will need to think about if I will make it or I will leave it there and use from the flat table this as a filter. But you can make it too. So you're practicing how to break a flat data model, a flat table, and that is a technique that I use by giving color to the column that will belong to a dimension. So this blue here, they are geography or location. That will be a job title or business, whatever you want to call it. And this will be gender and ethnicity. And the gray one are my fact table. Another thing that I will do, I will try to convert this percentage. It's going to brought up into Power Query. It's going to show in a different way. You're going to have to do some calculations there. So I will actually make it a number. Yeah, probably with 2 decimals. Yeah, I will leave it like that. And when I bring it to Power Query, I will convert it into a percentage. Okay, better than bringing as a percentage. But that is me. That is my way of working. Okay, you need to come up with your own ideas. If you want to bring it up, brought it up as a percentage, it's okay. But remember, you bring it as a percentage and then you convert it to a percentage. Power BI is going to multiply by 100 and blah, blah, blah. And you're going to have a 300 or 400 or 500%. Okay, so I normally prefer not to bring things in percentages. I prefer to have them as a ratio or as a decimal number. And then in Power Query, I can click the percentage and the percentage will be all fine. There is nothing more that I'm seeing about the data set that need any special clarification. It's very simple, it's well laid out, and very simple to work with. You might think it's little or small, but there is a lot of things you can do with that data set. From using map to comparison analysis, different countries and job analysis, do a director make the same money in Brazil that they do in China and they do in the US? So there is quite a lot of things apart from the questions in the brief, okay, that you can actually get out from the data set. I have nothing further to say. Any question regarding the data set? Orozco, is that understood? Luis? Say yes. Yep. That's me. Avis, I have nothing further to add. Let me stop sharing.
All right. Let me just take the control of the screen then.
Excellent.
All right. So as you can see, I already made a couple of visuals. But one of the things that I just wanted to remind all of you is don't forget that the data set that we give you isn't the limitation of the data set itself, right? There's multiple things that you can do with the same data set to make it more feasible, make it more understandable for the user, or just make it more convenient for the user. One of the things that Federico already mentioned is do not get too hung up on one way of how you see other people, for example, create a data model or something like that. Find your own way. Like Federico, for example, showcased. He uses the Excel file to create the first dimensions to understand, okay, so I'm going to group this in this dimension. This is going to be in that dimension. Somebody, again, is going to tell you, no, do all of that only in Power Query. That's because that's his way. It's as simple as that. Some of the things that I do, for example, with DAX, somebody else would say, why do you do that in DAX? I would do it in Power Query with M. That's because I know DAX a little bit better than the M language. So I use what I know, right? I can do everything. And that's what you should do as well. Don't be afraid to try out different things. Sometimes you might fail. Sure. Trust me, we've all failed. But that's what you learn from, right? You see, okay, I'm not maybe that proficient in this specific, so I need to find a workaround to make this work even without it. And then later on, learn the new skill. Okay, so I can do that now. But when you start off, there's going to be things that might seem a little bit more complicated than they should be, just because you're trying to make things too complicated. See, it might sound weird, but that's the way I usually think about it, right? We do usually, or a lot of times, get hung up on the sort of approach where I need to make the best possible approach here. You need to make the approach that works for you. That's the first one.
And create your own way. It's about you. We can give you something. You might use some, you might not use any, but at the end of the day, you need to create your own way. And
exactly.
that is important.
Sure, there are things like best practices, like there is a reason why Federico is talking about creating dimensions tables and fact tables, right? Because the model works a little faster that way. There's things that need to take into consideration, but when you're starting off, you need to do them one step at a time. Don't try to do everything at the same time. Don't overcrowd things. Just play it slow, learn and progress slowly but surely.
Actually, in a little about that, you see this flat table in a PLC proof of concept. I will not break it because I just want to show something to a client. I'm not going to drive myself crazy. When I sell product, I will do the data model, but I will work with that flat table because it's a PLC. I don't need to actually showcase. He wants to see some visuals. Okay.
Exactly.
So there are different times when you can use or another for you to know. So it's up to you.
It's just good practice to get used to it. Trust me, we're not going to judge and say, hey, no, this guy didn't have a data model. He used a flat table. His work is not working. No, that's not one of the things that we do here. We're trying to see how you're progressing with the report and building skills overall, not just one specific aspect of it. But yeah, what I was going towards is remember that the data set we give you can be enriched further on. Like one of the things that I noticed, for example, is, I noticed the age column. Don't ask me why. It's just based on the alphabet first column I noticed, right? Simple as that. Don't put any other meaning behind it. But what I saw from it is, like Federico mentioned, in Power Query, you can actually see for example, the profile for the information that you have within there. And one of the things that I usually recommend within the Power Query is for you to go under the Views tab right here and mark two things. Mark the column quality and the column profile. It's not necessarily something you have to always do, but it's just something to helps me. And the reason why I do this is because column quality is the first level of sort of quality assurance for me. That's the way I do it. And what it gives you these little markers up here, whether the value is valid, whether it gives out an error, or is it an empty one. So it's a quick profiling for the columns for me to see, okay, are all the values readable? Do I have any empty spaces? Like, for example, you might get data sets where some additional columns are coming in, but you look at them and they're completely empty. So the question is, are they supposed to be empty? If yeah, then why do I need it in the model? Probably you don't need it, right? If there's nothing there, what am I supposed to do with it? Just to remove it. So that's the first level of quality assurance. The second thing that I do is, there was a reason why it's the second one, because it's not always used, is the column profile. And here, the same approach as Federico said. For example, if I click on annual salary, it gives me a quick profile of the column. So there's going to be 1,000 values in total. There's more distinct, unique values. What's the min, what's the max, and so forth. So the reason why I'm going for this is because, like I said, the age was the first column I noticed. So the first thing I wanted to quickly check is, okay, what's the min-max age there? And we can see that we go from 25 to 65. Most of the employees are under the age 45. Okay, that gives me something to work with. But seeing here at the bottom, there's actually a lot of different years in between, right? And basically this would be the visual, or the length of the visual that I would have to incorporate. This is a lot of space. And even now the columns are relatively small. So if I make the chart even smaller, the columns are even going to be harder to read. Not even talking about putting a value label on top of them, right? They would just disappear. So what I was thinking about and what I did here is you can always create groups of those values. And one of the easiest ways on how you can do this, there's multiple ways on how you can do this, but one of the easiest ways is if you have a column, specifically a value column, you can just right click on it, new group. You're going to have two options. You can either create groups based on bins, which are basically sizes of buckets, or you can go by list. Use list when you have something specifically that you want to group, or if it's a textual value. Use bins when you have overall numbers. And in this case, what you see here, it tells me the min value is 25, the max is 65. So a good number for a bucket or a bin is 5. So I want the Power BI to do it for me. Just split all the age and group them into columns by 5 years. So afterwards, you just click OK, and it's going to create you a new column right here, age bins. You can rename it, you can reuse it, and so forth. In this case, why I'm using it is because you can see here in this visual, I'm using the column chart, and I'm basically using the age as a group mechanism so I can see, okay, which employee age group has the most employees under it. And what I did here as a hierarchy level is I used the group as the higher level, and then the actual age as a smaller group. So I can say, okay, I can see the most employees are under in the 45 plus bucket. Okay, I click on it and I can investigate it further. Okay, actually most of them are 45. So that's how you go around these things. You see and try to figure out, okay, what is the best approach possible here? Because if I leave just the age, here's the result, right? Very readable chart, right? Super intuitive, very useful. Not really. So just think about the setup of things. You want to make sure that it's easy for your end user to navigate and understand the report. Same thing goes for sorting in some cases, like in this case. If I don't have a separate sorting applied to it, it goes based on the value. So what I would probably do here, just to make it easier for user, is sort it in an ascending order, and not based on the value, but based on the age group. Because age is something that has continuality in it, right? So it has a start and the end point for it. So it's a lot easier for me to read this chart in this direction because it's something that our brain is just programmed to do. That's how we read information, right? So this is one of them. Of course, if you're in other countries where you're reading things from right to left, okay, go the other way around. Just make sure it's up to the standards, or let's say the cultural element that you are familiar with. But yeah, that's one thing you can do. The same way you can always play around with different other metrics. Like for example, we have the annual salary and we have the bonus, which means that we have the salary, we have the bonus. We don't really have a number for the total salary that an employee is receiving. So you can use just a regular X function, one of the X functions, to basically calculate how much is the employee getting at the very end with the bonus on top of it. We don't have that number by default, but you have all the necessary tools to create one. So just think about the data set, about what could be done in different dimensions, how you can split this information. Because at the end of the day, you are trying to tell a story with that data. Reporting nowadays isn't really just about showcasing the result itself. It's really going towards trying to create a report that allows you to look at the current situation, but then allows you to ask questions, okay, why or how? How did we get here? Why did it happen? And that's when you try to investigate things through drill down, through cross-chart filtering. You try to apply different filters and look at the actual data that's underneath it. Another thing, we have a hire date and we have an exit date, which means that we have two dates, and based on which I can also define whether or not the employee is still active or is it a dismissed employee, so he's no longer active. You can easily do that just by creating a calculation again. What I'm doing here is, well, in this case, I already exit date. But yeah, what I'm doing is a very basic if statement. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Then I'm saying, hey, if you see that the exit date is blank, then the employee is still active because he hasn't left the company. If it's not in the active phase, then it's in dismissed. There's really no in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that gives me another grouping mechanism where I can say, hey, I want to see, for example, the total yearly employee kind of ratio. Okay, I want to see how many we hired, how many we terminated. And from the briefing questions, you know that one of the questions that we need to answer is actually the turnover rate. So this allows you, again, already to have those values for you. So you can calculate how many we have active, how many we have dismissed. You can have a turnover rate. In this case, I'm just summing them up. If I would create a clustered column chart instead of a stacked one, I would probably then add a line on top of it and have the total turnover rate. So I can see, for example, how it fluctuates from year to year. And if somebody wants to focus on that, they can do that. So there's just multiple ways on how you can tackle the same information. Like the same for location-based, right? I know that I have the map. And I could have the map, I could say, okay, the value is, for example, going to be even just the annual salary or something like that. You can zoom in, you can see the value split and everything, but there is a reason why, for example, you do different types of showcases for similar information. Like, for example, in this case, the reason why I did the combo bar next to the map is because it allows me to filter things a lot more efficiently. Like I could, hold down control, for example, and select the three dots and just select USA. That's not an issue. But it's a lot easier for me to do this. I can just click on United States and it zooms into that specific country. If I zoom out and there's something on the other side of the world, right, I don't have to kind of find the location, then manually zoom in. I can split it. I use the other visual to basically navigate the map. So if I'm interested in, let's say, China, filter it out, okay? These are the cities where people are being employed. So just different ways on how similar information could be handled. Yeah, Federico, go ahead.
There is some resolution problem with your image. Are you at 1080 or something?
Not really.
I mean, it has to be the webinar thingy more than anything. Okay.
How's it for everybody else? Do we have some resolution issues? Do you have a lot of pixels or?
Mine is okay. Luis, I think it's going to be your internet or your connection. Remember, we are different places apart, and it might be a consequence of that. I'm having no problem seeing AB's screen or resolution well.
One thing to remember also, guys, is if you have, like, for example, in this case, if it is a technical issue, you're gonna have a recording afterwards as well. So these sessions are recorded, and you're gonna receive a recording afterwards, so you can go through it once more, just to, you know, kind of reassure yourself. Or if you remember talking, me or Federico talking about something in specific, you can rewind it back to that point of time and, okay, just listen to it once more. So we're giving you that opportunity. But yeah, other than that, what I did here is, for example, I have a timeline, and you can see I'm using already the newly created column for the status, and I can quickly highlight, for example, okay, I just wanted an overall picture of to see which year is the one that, for example, we dismissed the most employees. I don't know what happened in 2016, but we dismissed a lot of employees. So it's just a visual identification for everything. The other thing, and I actually specifically wanted to talk about it also today, is one of the visual things to always notice within your reports. And before I do that, there is something I want to do, and that is, or actually, yeah, no, I can just revert to default. There we go. I'm going to revert everything to default. There's not going to be any categories or anything like that. Perfect. There's going to be something random there, random there. There we go. Remember, guys, when you are creating a report, pay attention also to the colors that you use for the visuals. Now, why I say that? For example, if I go ahead and have something like departments here, I'm going to give one trick that I've learned over the years is whenever you create new visuals and you see that, for example, if some of the colors are off, do a quick switch between the pages. That allows the visuals to do a fresh load, and sometimes it changes the original colors that you had there. It might not seem that important, but trust me, once you start with real data sets where you have a lot of different categories, it's quite annoying. So if you have a lot of different dimensions, just switch between the pages so the charts have a fresh load. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because of this. So let's not put gender, for example, status, and I don't know, job title. There we go. Here we have departments, and I'm also gonna add business units, for example. There we go, perfect. So you can see there's a lot of yellow and a lot of orange, right? Now, if you look here, it still kind of makes sense. It seems at least. So the active are in yellow. That's what we see also here. That's what we see here. But here we're not really talking about no more active or dismissed employees. We're talking about overall situation. Here is the yellow again. Here's the yellow again. Here we have random colors. If I open one of them up, you can see, okay, there's yellow here again. So make sure that you're using similar colors to where it makes sense. I do understand it's, you know, simpler to just have things do it, everything automatically. If that would be a great world, we would probably all of us do that, but we have to figure out how to do these things. So just make sure you always go through your different categories. You check your different subcategories. You check all your drill down levels. You see how these colors take effect. Because the last thing you want to do is, again, you don't want to confuse the end user, right? So here, what I did previously is I specifically went into the data colors and said, okay, active members are going to be in green, dismissed are going to be in red. Here as well, since I'm talking about the same information, that means that active is going to be green, dismissed is going to be in red. Now, if I go under here and, for example, split it to something smaller, let's say the same gender. There we go. I open up one of them. I see, okay, female are in purple, male is in blue. I check if it's the same here. Seems to be the same. Good. Because one of the things that happens in the backend is the color assignment is done based on the unique values. So the reason why you go through different drill down levels and just check different combinations of filters, slicers, whatever you have in the pages, if you filter out something on initial load and then reintroduce it into the report, there might be some color discrepancies. So just make sure that you always try or start off with the highest possible value when you're going with it, and then you try to narrow it down and see if any colors change, if you have the right results, if they still make sense, and if it's overall not confusing to the user. Like, for example, if I'm talking about count here and I'm using the yellow color and I'm talking about count here, there's no reason for me to keep 4 colors. Or even worse, if I go under specialty products, there's even more colors here. there we go. There's red. There's going to be green somewhere. You get the point, right? So what I would probably do is, well, in this case, it's pretty simple. I would set the base color, set it to something like yellow or darker yellow if you want to, or, completely change and say, yeah, yellow is not really the color for this report. Okay, go for, I don't know, purple. Okay, then change it also to purple here. Just make sure that it does make sense in all kind of possible variations, right? Same value needs to be in the same color or similar color, because that allows the user to understand that we're talking about the same metric. There's a reason why you'll know in data visualization that one of the rules that usually gets kind of enforced and a lot of people are looking at it is, for example, if there's an increase, that's typically green. If there's a decrease, that's typically in red. Well, not in case when we're talking about expenses, right? Increased expenses, not good. So now it becomes red. But there is some color association to how we read things. So just play around with them and see how they are being handled. All right, what else? We could use the time series. For the time series, remember that you need to provide a hierarchy, and then there's the date field itself. You can use the built-in hierarchy, or you can have separate columns just to have few columns itself. Like, for example, if I use the built-in hierarchy, this is in Latvian, so that's a year, quarter, month, day. But if I have all the data, for example, I click on it, I drill down to quarters. From quarters, I go down to months. From months, I go down to days. If you don't need these, you can always remove them from the hierarchy. There's no reason to keep them there. Or you just, if you already have it in your data model with a separate calendar table, just drag in only year and month. Like in this case, I didn't want to confuse you. So you can see these are in Latvian, right? Not really telling you a lot. So I just made something that is hard-coded. Year and month is going to be hard-coded, going to be universal. So I keep the base functionality where I can select multiple years, for example, and I can drill down specifically into the month view. I don't need the quarters anymore. If it's something you need, then you add it to the hierarchy. So just play around with the visuals, with the setup, and see if clicking around makes sense to you. Yeah, go ahead, Federico.
Well, it's about the map. There is
Sure.
a question from Lydia Benitez. On the map, the size of the circles is by data volume. How could the size be shown by higher salary?
I'm guessing that's based on maximum salary within it. If that's it, so what happens is you showcase the value that is showcased here by default, but you can always change the aggregation.
Maximum.
That's one of the approaches.
I think that actually.
Same goes for average.
Lydia, let me know if that is okay with you.
Yeah. If that's what you were looking for. If not, then we'll try to address it differently. But if you could give us just an example of what you're trying to do, then we'll try to replicate it and make sure it's easier. Esther, how many colors is good maximum to use? What do you think? It depends on the report itself. I would say the maximum is like 5, 6 colors. You can use, I think Power BI kind of did it very good here when they have under the color bucket, you have 8 primary colors, and then you have the 2 accent colors, so black and white. That should be the max. Sure, you could use within different visuals like shades of the same color.
Yes, I always go monochromatic no matter what. You will not see many reports of me using different colors at all. At least, as Avi mentioned, you are giving, when you assign a color, you have to make sure you follow it up all the time. If you decide to say United States is going to be yellow, every time the United States show up, it has to be yellow. So you need to be consistent in that approach. So me personally, I don't use different color. I try to go with the monochromatic palette, that is the shade that Avi was talking about.
Mm-hmm. So for example, if we use, I don't know, let's say the blue color for the report, just use one column and different shades of it. If you need more colors for it, you're like, I have 9 slices of, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total. I have 7 slices instead of 6, right? I don't want 2 of them to be the same color. There's a bunch of tools online where you just type color gradient, you define the
Yeah.
base color, and it's going to give you a list of gradient colors. So you can always go with, there's a lot of tools that you can utilize. Don't limit yourself to just Power BI. Also regarding the colors, remember that even if you're using, for example, a monochromatic approach, in some cases it might be useful to have one accent color, just to emphasize on something that is important. But
Yes.
it really depends on how you're delivering your report, right? If it's something that people use every single day, I usually tell don't go too extreme with the colors because it's going to be hard for them. Unless they say that, hey, it's a lot easier for us that if this product is going to be in this color, this product in this color, it's how we are used to things. Don't break what they're used to as well. At the end of the day, they're going to be the ones using the reports. Your job as a
There is,
report builder is to build the best option. Go ahead.
there is another question from
Yep.
Andreas. It's about tooltip. I'm not going to count the tooltip as another page because it will be not a page that I can display. It will be displayed within the 2 pages that we allow for the challenge. So tooltip is okay for me.
I would say any page that is hidden is not counted towards the total number. That's one way on how you can kind of handle it. Because tooltip, you can physically hide it. The end user doesn't need to know about it, and you also want to hide it because you don't want them to accidentally stumble upon it. But you can reference it within the visual easily.
And cannot be a full page. Okay,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
tooltip is little.
Yeah, 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 of course. Just play around also. Yeah, I don't want to delete anything yet. Play around also in some cases, if you have a lot of information within the tooltip, it's not recommended to have it because tooltip is tooltip for a reason, right? It's supposed to give you additional context, but not to go to the extremes. Remember that if you create a page that is used as a tooltip, Power BI by default is going to scale it to their defined size. But you can always go to the canvas settings. You can see this is what happens automatically. If I turn it off, it's 16 by 9. If I say that this is a tooltip, it has a specific page size in mind. You can always go here and make it a little bit bigger if you need it to. Like if you're going to have one visual that is a little bit larger, right? It doesn't mean that you have to kind of squeeze it in. No, if you need a little bit more space, you can do it. Just don't make another full page within a single visual.
I don't personally, again, I don't do tooltips unless specified by the doctor. If the client want tooltip, I will put tooltip. But for me, tooltip is a chart within a chart. That, in my view, it make it weird. Sorry, but that's personal preferences.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just trying to build the best variation, right?
Yeah.
Just because somebody else uses tooltips doesn't mean that is the best approach. Just because you see somebody else, for example, use a drill through doesn't mean that's the best approach. There's going to be a lot of debate regardless of how you try to tackle this, right? There's going to be people who are going to basically pray by tooltip and say it's the best invention in Power BI. There's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
be people who's going to say, yeah, it's okay. It's not that great, but it has its purposes. So don't get too hung up on what you hear or what you see. Like I usually say,
It is up
yeah, go ahead.
to you. No, it is up to you, Andreas. If you want to use a tooltip, it will not be counted as a page. We are giving our experience also for you to think about it. But if you use it, go for it.
Exactly. If you can make something interesting with it, right? We're not going to be like, he's using tooltips.
Yeah.
No, I've
Actually,
seen.
if you create a good tooltip, I will actually most probably will mentioning I like that tooltip because there are tooltips and tooltips. Okay, so do something proper. Probably you got my man. That's the tooltip.
We need to adjust this one. We need to make point 11, which is optional. Prove Federico that tooltips are useful.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, guys, you go with what you feel is right, right? There are general guidelines, like for example, like we said, regarding the colors. Typically, you don't really have a lot more than 5, maybe 6 visuals within the report page. Cards are not visuals. I want to emphasize on that. Cards are not visuals, like real visuals. Either it's a column, line, area, map, or whatever it is. Don't card counts, because you can have like 4 or 5 cards and then few extra visuals. Don't worry about that. But just make something that you're happy with, right? Just because somebody's going to say, hey, I didn't like this approach. Okay, tell me what you think was wrong with it. Learn from
Avis,
that. Yeah, go ahead.
I got another question
Sure.
from Gabriel. It's about one of the questions, and I say about historical bonus trend.
Okay.
How will you actually work it out? He's asking for if there is a function about it, or how will you represent it? I've been on that
Historical
side
bonus
checking, but
trend.
the
I
thing,
would,
Gabriel, is the dataset doesn't actually allow for you to create a proper line to see how a trend that indicate up or down. I don't think the dataset will give you that
no,
100%.
the bonus itself is just going to give you an understanding of how the bonuses are split, for example. But you can use that within a DAX measure to calculate, for example, the average bonus per year. That's one
Yeah,
approach, and just see how it floats around based on year over year, for example. You could go for the average bonus for not the year itself, but for example, for the department, the whatever it could be. I would say just go for a year, because that would be the highest level, but then you can
yeah,
split it by a legend or something. And you can see, for example, how the same bonus system works for US, how it works for China, how it works for one department, how it works for other department. So I would say that that would be my approach.
I think
I
that
would,
that is a nice approach. I will finding out the average per year and then see how it has fluctuated over there. It might be because I've been working here on that side of my screen with line chart and everything,
yeah,
and I think Avis approach is actually quite good.
because the bonus itself just indicates how much percentage are people getting. If you put it on a
Yeah,
chart, it's just going to sum up the
yeah,
the total bonus, but at the same time, it doesn't give you really anything, because you don't know how many employees were getting, what's the average for it. It gives you, it's one of those charts that I call, it's a chart because it's a chart, right? It doesn't really tell you a lot, but it's a chart.
yeah,
So yeah, something like, even for example, if you feel that, okay, I don't really feel comfortable first to compare percentages, okay, go with the salary. Just use something to give you a big starting point for not really the salary itself, but salary with the bonus, for example. Or you want to see, for example, specifically how much you paid out in bonuses. So you again make a new calculation, which is the annual salary times the bonus. That gives you the total. Then you deduct the new salary with the bonus from the base salary, and you get the bonus amount itself. You make a chart based on that. And that value you can use, for example, also for comparison for year over year. So how is our bonus system looking like? There's different ways on how you could handle it. Really depends on what's the point that you want to prove there, right? Because every
yeah,
chart is supposed to tell you something.
yeah. Gabriel,
Yeah, go ahead.
you have free hand. Go whatever way you want to go. If you decide to do it and reply to that question, let us know this about the historical trend, because I would like to know how you actually came out with the idea or how you try to fix it. It is important, guys, that you do something that is out of the box. Let us know in the visual or in the comment or in the commenting. Okay, so we know that you actually went farther than we
Yeah,
were expected at the answer you. I give you one bonus point for that.
deal.
Okay. Yeah, guys, give me a second. My car is driving me crazy, so I see you in a minute.
Yeah, no worries. Um, Other than that, yeah, one of the things that you can guys actually try out as well is we have just recently released a beta version for the scatterplot visual. So you have a couple of points where you have to see if there's correlation. Correlation, one of the visuals that showcases this is a scatter plot. So try to play around with it, see what it can do. The primary things here is basically you can always go for a drill down. So for example, if I recalculate things, if I click on one of the nodes, it zooms in, it zooms out. You have the same capabilities as we would typically have. So play around with it. Show us what you can do with it. Tell us what you like about it, what you dislike about it, what you think is missing from it, like I said. I always encourage people to just be honest about things, right? Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is we also want to make the best possible visuals there are. So if you're missing something
Congratulations on
crucial,
that. I
right?
didn't know.
Yeah,
I
it's a
didn't
beta
know. Well
visual.
done. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna try it. Thank you.
So don't judge too harshly, but judge harshly. But yeah, there's a lot of different features that we implemented there. One good thing that or recommendation I would say is if you decide to play around with the scatter plot, since it's a new visual, there's not going to be a lot of samples you can find anywhere, right? In previous reports, it wasn't available. Look at the product page itself. So you can see how it works, what interactions, what kind of what key features we emphasize on. Like one of the things I think could be useful in this particular challenge is actually the quadrants. So we allow you to define custom quadrants as well. So you can have things that highlight, for example, the upper lower parts. You can set different thresholds on either the Y or X axis. There's different ways you can actually play around with it. And we do have also regression lines. So read through it, right? You need to find correlation. This is kind of important.
There you go.
So play around with the information that's available for you. If you get stuck on something, reach out to us, either by writing to the ZoomCharts team if it's something regarding the visuals, or posting it on the LinkedIn group, and Federico and his team can help you out. Or if none of those help, just cry out for help on LinkedIn. Probably me or Federico are going to notice you and get back to you.
Guys, Chat GPT is my best assistant
Oh,
of
yeah,
late. And it's free. And believe me, you can do amazing stuff with it.
exactly. A lot of people don't really kind of appreciate it. They're like, nah, I'm not that advanced. You don't have to be super advanced to start using ChatGPT.
No,
Not at all.
I don't write that anymore. Yeah, ChatGPT does it for me.
Yeah,
And it does it quicker and better than me. I
sure.
just made sure, 1 second, I made sure that the calculation, the number is coming back to me is sounded, okay? So I made some preview that the number are okay, but then if everything is okay, I apply and give you everything formatted. I don't have to do anything, just copy and paste.
Yeah, sure. In some cases, you might want to, adjust some column names or anything, because
Yeah,
by
correct.
default, if you're gonna ask ChatGPT, for example, how do I create, a sum function, it's gonna give you something like this, right? It's gonna be a measure, it's gonna be a sum. Sorry, measure, sum. You're gonna have a function. Within it, you're gonna have a table, and you're gonna have a column. So this
Yeah,
is just a generic reference to a formula.
yeah. You adapt the inside of the Zoom, the table and the column, and there you go.
Exactly. And like Federico said, make sure you double check the results, right? Even if you think
Oh
you
yeah.
did the right calculation, just double check it. I can't
No,
emphasize
no,
enough on how
no.
many times I've done
Don't
this.
use it. Don't use it if you are not going to counter check that their numbers are correct. When I do that, it's because I already know more or less the value.
Exactly.
Okay. If no, I will not use it. I'm not going to give my clients nothing. But if I'm, for example, I was looking for a measure that will actually pick up all the filters selected in my visual, okay, and I will put it in another place so people know this has been selected, this and this and this. And I asked ChatGPT and give me the formula perfect in 2 seconds. And it was a big formula because I have 7, 8 filters.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put it in, adapted because it gives you a fake column, okay, and it worked perfectly. And it's sitting down in quite a couple of reports for my clients. So there you go. Or the logic. You mentioned about the logic. Sometimes I get confused with the logic. Okay, making in group of 25 to 30. If I'm making in Power Query with the if statement, if, or sometimes I get lost with the logic. I just had to go to ChatGPT, give me the logic, and one go, the logic is there.
Yeah.
And remember what we promised to Sabine?
Yeah. That's why I'm posting we're highlighting the comment. But that's going to be it for today, guys. So just remember, there's a lot of tools. Use all of them. If you get stuck on something, we're here to help. All right.
Okay, so guys, thank you very much. And I see you on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. See you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.